Hello. I never know that little button is on. Hi, it's Nicole Franklin. Hi, everybody. Nicole Franklin and Giovanna Aguilar and Arlen Schumer. Let me show you everybody. Giovanna's on with us in photo form tonight. And Arlen Schumer, hello, the talented comic book historian. Comic
Hey,
book artist, Arlen Schumer. We are Midnight Media Capture. We're on 4 hours earlier tonight on the East Coast at 8 p.m. We're doing Wednesdays with Arlen Schumer. MMC presents Wednesdays with Arlen Schumer. This is our first night. We have the fantastic Arlen Schumer doing a webcast with us in the fall. We begin our fall season of Midnight Media Capture in September. And we're here tonight through a gallery run that Arlen has in New York City. We'll be here online the night before his in-person lectures at the gallery run. So if you're not in New York City, you could be here with us Wednesdays at 8, just hanging out with Arlen. So Arlen, let's hang out.
you got it. Should we take it away and go right to my presentation?
Well, let's talk first about what the
Yeah,
presentation is, because you're at a gallery in the East Village, the funky East Village. The
right.
opening was great. The gallery is called Art on A Gallery, which I finally got because it's on Avenue A,
Exactly.
right? So Art on A Gallery. Tell us a little bit about the owners and how you got there and how all this magic happened, because we're going to see some photos of the artwork
Yeah,
on the wall. It's
absolutely.
so fantastic.
Well, I used to live in the East Village, so it's my old neighborhood.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, it's great to get my first ever solo one-man gallery show because I've been a commercial artist and illustrator. So traditionally, fine art and illustration, you don't get gallery shows if you're a commercial artist. But, I would say the last 20 years, the lines have blurred between fine art and commercial art. So galleries are more open to comics as comics have entered the mainstream, graphic novels, the superhero movies. So more and more art galleries are having shows about comic art. So I was participating in a group show about 6 months ago in the East Village in a little theater that had exhibit space called Theater for the New City. And I was asked to participate by an artist friend of mine, and it was a gallery show called The Struggling Cartoonist. And it was all about comic artists that were using comics in different ways, not traditional comics. And because I've been an illustrator in a comic book style, but doing commercial, I've never done a comic book in my life. I've never done anything for Marvel or DC Comics. I've been an historian of their works,
Mm-hmm.
but as an illustrator, I'm an illustrator working in a comic book style. So this artist friend of mine knew that I had done work along the lines of the theme of his group show. So I had never even been in a group show. So this was my first time participating. I had 5 pieces, and I'm at the opening. This was back in February. And this beautiful woman comes up to my art and looks at it and says, I like your art more than anybody's in the show. So I was very flattered. And we got to a discussion. She says, Arlen, I have my own gallery further south in the East Village. Why don't you come and visit it? So the next week I went down there, and, small gallery, like the size of a railroad apartment in Manhattan, but big enough. And she goes, Arlen, how would you like your own show? And I was like, are you kidding, really? Because if somebody had told me a year ago, Arlen, you'll be having your own one-man show in the East Village, I would have really said, well, how am I going to get there? Because, like I said, I'm a commercial artist, illustrator. How would I get a show in a gallery setting? But she basically was open to it, and it made me look at my artwork over the years, and by pulling illustrations out of their commercial context and printing them up large and framing them, the medium is the message, and presentation is everything. So when you take some of my art, which we're going to show in a little bit, I'm going to take people through a little virtual tour of the art show tonight.
Really excited about it.
Really, the lecture I'm doing tomorrow. So every Wednesday night is going to be like a little preview of what the lecture is the next day. So if you can't come to the lecture, you come to the Google Hangouts and you'll get to see a sort of a little Google version of it. But you'll see, I've taken my art out of its original context, and when you frame it and put it on the walls in an art gallery, voila, it becomes fine art. So,
just to jump in, Arlen,
yeah.
Again, this is a live show in the East Village, Thursday nights, on the Lower East Side, New York City. But we are a web event channel, Midnight Media Capture. MidnightMediaCapture.com is where you can see that we are previewing our fall season with Arlen, the Silver Age of Comic Book series that he'll be doing in the fall. But we're here at Google Hangout, hanging out with Arlen Wednesday nights, the night before his Thursday night's lecture. And these are weekly events until Thursday, June 5th.
And then, of course, the gallery is showing the art every day, Monday through Saturday, from 1 o'clock to 8 p.m. So I'm going to be there every Thursday lecturing at 6 o'clock in the gallery. And, you know, when you go to the gallery site, all the lectures and stuff are posted, or all the information will be there. But basically, Thursday night is the big night for going out in New York City. So that's why we decided most openings and real big events are on a Thursday night. So that's when we decided to have the gallery lectures. And even that's a new thing, to have a lecture right in a little gallery. You know, we're draping a screen, and it's going to be kind of a very cool little intimate setting for the people that do come. And then if all goes well, they're supposed to be live streamed. So I'll find out more information by tomorrow and post that everywhere, so that, again, if people can't come to New York City, they're not in the area, if all goes well, they'll be able to get on their computer tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and see the live feed. So I'm hoping that all comes together.
Well, let's get a sneak peek. So these are 6 p.m. Thursday night lectures?
Yes.
All right, let's get a sneak peek tonight and every Wednesday night. So, Arlen, take it away.
You got it. Here we go.
The artwork itself is so exciting.
Okay, so do you see, I just want to make sure, do you see the full screen?
Yes.
Art on a Gallery presents Life, Art, oops, I'm sorry, wait, see, I already screwed up, hold on. Okay, Life, Art, and Comic Art, a talk by me. That image is based on the show image, which I love the fact that, again, when you take this art out of context, you tell me, you know, the art world is usually all about money and what the art is worth. So having a Clark Kent image of Super Money Man, I thought would make a perfect show image. Here's the opening. It was Thursday, May 1st, you know, last week. And here is the promotional image that shows all the lectures. Oops. You know, every time I press this, hold on, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'm just getting a little used to it.
It's colorful to look at. I love the green and blue. I mean, what do you call this color that kind of pops out? It's not fluorescent. It's what? Is there a certain color of it?
No, it's funny because I took it from the green of the Money Man costume. When I designed this promotional image, it seemed like the green would pop off based on the color of the guy's costume. So that's what led me to keep that color green, because my name is in white, so it needed another color. If you look at this image, the way I popped out on the 22nd, we're having a double birthday comic book costume party in the gallery, because I'm a Gemini, the gallery curator is a Gemini. So she said, let's have a comic book costume party. I'm like, okay, it's your gallery. So you'll see. So May 8th, Life, Art, and Comic Book Art. That's the first lecture tomorrow, and I'm going to take you through the gallery as if you were there. These are pictures that were taken the day of the opening. So here's the exterior window with the poster image framed hanging in the window. Here was opening night. Like I said, it's like a little railroad apartment. But there's the gallery. There's me in my white jacket right in the center there. Here's another image of the opening, and it was pretty packed. It
was really packed.
We had a full crowd. So on the left side of the wall, when you walk in, here's the art. We're missing one image on the left, which you can see here. The two women I'm with are very special, and I'm going to tell you who they are in a little bit. But the first image on the left, in the background there, Fathers of the Dark Knight. This is an off-Broadway play that's premiering June 7th that is based on the real-life behind-the-scenes story of how Batman was created by Bob Kane, which most people have heard of, but his writing partner, Bill Finger, another artist, Jerry Robinson, and like all the great American success stories, there's a tragic side story of the Batman creation, which I'll get into. But I met the producer through Facebook, Roberto Williams, big Batman fan, obviously, and it's going to be done with live actors. He teaches music and voice at a Bronx high school, and all the people in the show are students, so it's using student talent to bring this play to life. There's the rough sketch that I showed Roberto, and you can see it's got to be tight enough to get across the idea, but rough enough to allow for completion, and then here's how it looks finished.
Beautiful.
So you can see how I bring things from start to finish. Now, the image behind me in the middle, and remember I told you I'm going to get to who these two women are, but that image is a very unique image, and the reason why it's unique is because it kind of looks like Batman, right?
Yes.
That's because this was the very first image of Batman when he debuted in May 1939 in a comic book called Detective Comics. It was created by, that's the artist, young Bob Kane, and his writer partner named Bill Finger. Now, Bill Finger you probably haven't heard of, but here's a composite. Bill Finger worked for DC Comics from 1939 to when he died in 1974, and he created so many concepts, not only just for Batman, but he created the character Green Lantern. He came up with Superboy. He wrote like so many comics, but was basically mostly in obscurity. The reason why he's important to the story is Bob Kane, when he came up with this Batman figure, he came up with a sketch first before it became finished, like this art you're seeing. And he showed the sketch to Bill Finger, his partner. And Bill Finger made so many visual suggestions to the sketch that without Bill Finger, you would not have Batman the way you see him. And I put that theory to test when I attempted back in 1999 to create this mythical sketch that never was published. Bob Kane and Bill Finger talked about it in interviews. And I set about making that Batman, and this is the illustration I came up with. This is as close to what Bob Kane's sketch might have looked like before Bill Finger made his suggestions. And in doing so, let me just go back to that image. I needed a position to draw the Batman figure in, and I had read that Bob Kane, when he was young, used to trace drawings of the great science fiction artist Alex Raymond, who created Flash Gordon. So I looked in my reference books, and I happened to find the very image accidentally that Bob Kane had actually used for the cover of Detective Comics 27. So in this composite image, it's like a collage, I put together all the little pieces that made Batman Batman. So it's everything from, he's a little bit of Zorro, he's a little bit of, that's the Leonardo da Vinci flying wing in the upper left corner. You see the dictionary at the top right. That's because Bill Finger said to Bob Kane, you should make his headpiece resemble a bat. And he pulled down a dictionary and looked up the word bat. So everything is there. And this became the cover for a trade magazine back in 1999 called Alter Ego, as a way of trying to get Bill Finger the credit he deserves, because Bob Kane took all the credit. Bill Finger never got his name on the strip. He ended up dying penniless in 1974 because Bob Kane took all the glory. And people are starting now to kind of, there's a grassroots movement to try to get Bill Finger the credit, but this is the article that I wrote based on that cover story. So I've been working on this for 15 years,
Wow.
I like to think I was a little ahead of my time because now that's Athena Finger, Bill Finger's granddaughter, to my right.
Oh, wow.
And she is now taking up the fight and starting a foundation. I'm going to design a logo for her. And so there's like a movement to get Bill Finger the credit. And I'd like to think I've been doing my part for many years.
Very much.
Yeah, now as we move forward, the image behind the woman's head to my left, that image, her name is Shelley Mayer. Now, why is the name Shelley Mayer significant? Because her grandfather was named Shelley Mayer as well. He was an editor for DC Comics way back in the beginning. And in the spring of 1938, one of his jobs was to find material for a brand new comic called Action Comics. This was the mock-up for the first cover, but they didn't want to feature. That's just a placeholder image. They told Shelley Mayer to find something from the slush pile. You guys know what a slush pile is. That's where all the unsolicited. So Shelley Mayer goes through the slush pile and finds something that he thinks is really good, that he's never really seen before. And that's why later on in the spring of 1938, a little comic called Action Comics premiered. It was Shelley Mayer who chose Superman out of the slush pile and put it on the cover of Action Comics 1. So without Shelley Mayer, her grandfather, there would be no Superman. And Superman obviously was one of my main early character inspirations, and I've done many pieces of artwork about him. So the image behind Shelley's head is this image that I did for a graphic design trade magazine, and it's sort of autobiographical. It's me as a homeless Superman telling the art world that comic books are books, comic books are art, comic books are graphic design. Why won't you listen to me? So I'd like to think now people are starting to listen in the world, the graphic design world, the commercial art world, graphic novels, Hollywood. Comics are now have entered the culture in ways that nobody ever expected. So things have really changed. Oops. You know, every time I click on this, it goes back to the beginning. Hold on.
Well, now we know.
Yeah, I have to get the hang of this. Okay, let me move ahead.
Do the ladies have a website, or where should we look for them?
Say it again. Whose website?
Well, the website to continue this movement to get the artists recognized.
Tell people to go to Facebook. Athena Finger. There's a couple of Bill Finger Facebook pages. There's a Bill Finger appreciation group, and then there's a documentary film called Cape Creator, and I think they both have Facebook pages, and Athena Finger herself is on Facebook. So my inspiration for Superman comes out of the 60s when I grew up, and this is the artist Curt Swan, and he drew Superman from 1958 to 1986, so he's really the baby boomer Superman. And anytime I do Superman, I'm always paying homage to him. And I ended up doing a comic historical feature for Comic History Trade magazine all about Curt Swan, the artist. So you can see that I've taken this Curt Swan image and I've made it into a kind of historical piece. Mm-hmm. And Curt Swan also features in the next piece in the gallery my poster for the web series we're going to be doing in the fall. If you look at the upper left corner, there's Curt Swan, along with other artists from the Silver Age, which is another name for basically the 1960s. Because when comic historians talk about the Golden Age, they're talking about the 1930s and 40s when comics started. So the Silver Age is the 60s, when all the new characters, the Marvel Comics heroes like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and all those, Thor, they started. So that's called the Silver Age. So this web series is based on my book, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art, shown here, photographed by a friend with his glass of beer. And it's a coffee table art book based on the artists of the 1960s. Here's the title page. And these are all these great artists that influenced me and a whole generation to become artists and comic artists. And I'd like to think that the way we look back on the Renaissance masters of the human figure, like Michelangelo and Raphael, future historians are going to look back at these masters of the human figure, like Carmine Infantino, who drew the character The Flash. Here's a double-page spread from my book, and you can see Infantino delineated two-dimensional motion in a way nobody ever had before, the sort of multiple image strobe effect. And his images of speed have become graphic standards in the history. So if all goes well this summer, I'll be coming out with a revised and expanded edition of my book, as well as a digital version. The Silver Age comes to the digital age. Somebody dubbed me the Silver Age Sensei. So I did a self-portrait of myself as Doctor Strange, kind of bringing the digital ebook version, because these double-page spreads are going to look incredible on a digital platform. So I'm really excited about that happening. And that'll be in conjunction by the time the fall comes. The book will be out and available. So our web series each week will be a little mini lecture on a different artist from the Silver Age. Now, I based this image on a classic Neil Adams double-page wraparound cover of all the heroes standing there with a spotlight on them. And I kind of was thinking about that when I did the next image in the art show for Comic Book Men. Comic Book Men is the AMC TV series started by Kevin Smith, who I turned into a superhero here. And I based my Comic Book Men logo on the classic logo of the Justice League of America, which is what I do with all my art. I try to base it on classic comic book graphic symbols and graphic ideas. But obviously they didn't go with my logo, they went with their artwork. This is what the show logo looks like. So I was actually on the show 2 years ago, and they liked my art, and after the show the producers asked me, as a thank you gift to all the people who worked on the show, can I turn them into superheroes and make it into a poster so that they can give it to the crew. So in the front is Kevin Smith and the cast.
Yeah.
In the front, and then behind them are all the crew members, and I took their photographs and I turned them all into various pop culture superheroes.
Oh, I love that.
And you can see it there on the wall. That's a friend of mine, Adam, looking on. And you can see in the gallery, I put little comic book panel plaques underneath the piece of art that act as little, you know, like there's always the little title. But, you know, most artists and art and galleries, museums, those little name plaques, other than giving the title, they say next to nothing. But I'm the exact opposite. In each one of these plaques, I give you basically the background information. Pretty much what I just said verbally tonight is encapsulated on that little card. So the next image, if you can see, it's called O Black. Now, what is O Black?
It's wild.
O Black is, you ready for this? It's a mashup between the artist Jack Kirby, who's the classic Marvel Comics artist. He co-created Captain America, the Fantastic Four, Thor, the Avengers, all the things they're making movies out of, Jack Kirby did. But how did I come to create a mixture between one of Kirby's characters named OMAC, who was a science fiction one-man army? This is what he looked like. Well, to make a long story short, I was asked by the Jack Kirby Museum to take this unpublished pencil drawing of OMAC, and they were giving it the same image to different artists to ink. So I was about to start inking it, but then I got involved with a black artist who was doing something called Black Kirby, which was mixing Afro-centric themes dating back, you know, years and currently. and mixing it with Jack Kirby artwork. So I said, you know, I've got to ink this drawing of OMAC, and I wonder if I can mix it and do a kind of a Black Kirby piece. Well, I knew about Marcus Garvey because I've given lectures about Kirby, and he created the character of the Black Panther. And to make a long story short, this is a picture of Marcus Garvey, the Black nationalist. He came up with this whole Afrocentric idea, Pan-Africanism, and he was an influence on Martin Luther King years later. But Marcus Garvey really started all, and he had a habit of dressing up like this when he would go on public speaking engagements. So I took this flamboyant headgear and this military uniform and mixed it with OMAC, and I came up with O-Black. One black man liberating Africa. And in the word balloon, this is based on an editorial that he wrote from jail while he was in jail for basically promoting, back then they were called, of course, Negroes. But, you know, I know my history, so that's my little O-Black image. And
what's been the response to that?
Once again, no response. I'm still waiting for a response. I get no respect. I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of the comic art world. I want a critic to come into the gallery. We were talking about this before, Nicole, and I want them to review this and write about it and critique it. And I could take it in the sense of I want criticism. You know, it's nice to get compliments, but I would love an art critic to really critique this because, again, this isn't quite fine art. It's not quite comics. It's really not commercial art. It is what it is. And I would love a critic to take it for what it is and critique my art like they would critique any art show. This is an artist friend of mine, so you can see the next image right behind him. Oops, I'm sorry. That's a soccer poster that I did a couple years ago for the Azzurri Italian soccer team. And the way I approached it, because I have a graphic design background, is if you look closely, I don't play soccer. I don't really like soccer. I don't know too much about soccer. But I do know that Italy is called the boot, right?
Oh, there you go.
Graphically, I tried to position the athlete, the soccer player, in the same position as the map of Italy. So the boot is kicking the soccer ball just as he's kicking the soccer ball. And there's my photo reference. As an illustrator, I was trained to work from photographs. So you see that I took it and I flopped him, and I basically used that figure to base this image on. Now, that is Grace, the owner, not the owner, the curator and manager of the gallery, and that was opening night.
Boom.
Yeah, Boom is right, but notice how my brother who took this picture positioned, I mean, the Alfa Romeo, the red lettering is right behind her. She is like a human Alfa Romeo. And then above my head, like a thought balloon, is a picture of Superman, because that's how I felt that night, and that's how I felt in that picture when a woman like that poses with you. So that's the Alfa Romeo image, and that was done for the car company. And the criteria, it was a group show where they gave out the same assignment to different artists, and they said you can do anything about Alfa Romeo cars, about an aspect of them, their speed, their history. So, of course, working in comic book style, I said, I'm going to have a race between the car and the Italian Roman god of speed, you know, Mercury. But, of course, like I said, not only is the Alfa Romeo lettering based on the Action Comics logo, but I based the whole idea on a classic comic book cover, the race between Superman and the Flash. And you can see there's my pencil sketch and how I brought that to finish. And as we move on, let me just go a little further here. Okay. So as we move down the line, you can see in the right corner of the picture there's two pictures hanging vertically on the thin part of the wall and little things in between. This is my proposal done 20 years ago for the company Popshots, who made fold-out, pop-out cards. And they were really a great company. They did beautiful work, but they didn't do anything with comics. So I worked up a proposal that they should go to DC Marvel Comics and get the license to do a series of comic Popshot cards that I called comic cards. And sure enough, it took them a year, but they got the license, and there is my art produced. That's a photograph of the card mounted on the gallery wall coming right at you. There's the flat artwork that I did that they turned into the card. We did a Batman card, and you can see how there's my flat artwork that I based on the Batman animated series, if anybody knows that. And there's what it looks like three-dimensionally coming
I
at
loved
you.
it when I saw that in person, and I thought it was very retro at the same time.
Yeah.
That pop-up card.
I love pop cards.
Yeah. Now you can see this photograph of the wall. You can see in the corner there. What is that picture there in the corner? Well, that's the one we're gonna. That's the one we're gonna go to next. That's my big 5-foot square Elvis canvas on the back wall of the gallery, and that's Fem the bartender in front.
Yes.
And you know, I'm not even a big Elvis fan, but the point with Elvis that I always knew about was that Colonel Parker, who's pictured as the Pope there, is his manager who took 50% of everything and basically is the guy who controlled Elvis's career, and he's the one who put Elvis in all those horrible movies in the 60s and basically neutered his career. So this is a collaboration between an artist friend of mine I met at Rhode Island School of Design when I was there. We were both in graphic design, and she's a painter. Her name is Meredith Miller. And I gave her, black and white line art, which was my contribution, and then she did the complete finished painting. But basically the idea here, and I don't know why, we must have been talking about it, and I basically said, you know, if I ever did a picture of Elvis, it would be Colonel Parker basically prostituting Elvis, destroying his rock and roll cred from the 50s, selling him out, and using him to make money with. So basically that's how this image came to be. She painted on canvas, and then I did a computer-colored version of the same image that people can buy at the show as prints. So that's the story behind that image. Then as you go around the wall, you see this image, and that image that is Grace herself, that we saw a little bit before.
There she
in
is.
the show. When I first met her, I probably said to her, I could turn you into a Valkyrie. And that's basically what I did, is I developed a technique like that comic book men image where I can take people's pictures and find the middle ground between the photographic look and the black outline of comics. I called it finding your inner superhero. And I've done that with a lot of people and a lot of different graphic images. Then as you move down the gallery wall, from this picture done the day of the opening, you see my idea for Super Santa Claus. This was actually a Christmas card. What you get when you ask a nice Jewish boy to create a Christmas card. Here's what it looked like with the little trade dress in the upper left and right corners. I did a takeoff on the DC Comics bullet. It says Santa Claus Comics Group, SC instead of DC. And then the little seal in the upper right corner, it says approved by the Christmas Card Authority, December number 25. But in the gallery show, it's there without it, again, to look more like fine art. That's my artist friend, Krista Cassano. So right next to Santa Claus is the real story of Christmas, is Jesus Christ himself. Now, I based my image of Christ, I call it Jesus Christ comic style. I based it on the classic Warner Stallman image that is the most known Christ, really, probably of all time. He painted a series of these in the 1930s and 40s, and I think 500 million of these have been sold over the years. And I think the New York Times wrote an article a couple years ago saying this image might be the best known image in the history of Western art, believe it or not. But it's really what gave rise to the kind of modern version of Jesus as this, Swedish Nordic white man. Anyway, so I just sort of worked a little from it and made it praying. Now, right next to Jesus is my Jewish superhero. If Jesus was the first Jewish superhero, then I created my own Captain Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, this was done a couple years ago, a promotional comic book for this pro-Israel organization called Stand With Us, and the idea here was to tell the story of Israel in 8 pages. So that double-page spread, and basically I based Captain Israel on Jack Kirby's Captain America. If you look at the costumes, now Captain America was created by 2 Jews, Jack Kirby, real name Yaakov Kurtzberg, like a lot of American Jews in the 20th century, changed his name in order to be more Anglo to make it in the real world because there was so much anti-Semitism. And his partner, Joe Simon, who didn't change his name, they decided to raise America's consciousness before America enters the war. And in early 1941, they create Captain America to actually elevate the consciousness because America was very isolationist. And they actually dressed up Captain America, a real actor, and Stumping for War Bonds. So if anybody who saw the movie a couple years ago, they actually paid homage to that in the movie itself. It was based on reality. And because Captain America was an overnight success. So about 10 years ago, during the Second Intifada, I was trying to figure out what can I do to help Israel. I don't have the money to donate, but I thought to myself, if 2 Jews can create Captain America, 1 Jew can create Captain Israel. So I totally based them on Captain America, and I told the story of Israel. So this image, maybe the first pro-Israeli army image ever created, I think, and here's how it looked in the comic with the inset panels telling the story at this point in the comic, post-Holocaust, of how Israel was created through the United Nations. And Giovanna, we were talking before about doing a political comic with your painting.
Yes.
And this is a model that you can use in the sense of you can tell any story you want to tell.
Right.
And some pictures with politics, and that's what I did with Captain Israel.
Wow.
Moving on down the gallery wall, you have this image. I call this Super Peace Man. This was actually done for a series of lectures I gave to the CUNY Graduate Center about 10 years ago, which later became my book, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art. But as a lecture, I called it Superheroes in the 60s, Comics and Counterculture, because part of the Silver Age was how these characters mirrored what was happening in the decade. So superheroes went from establishment to counterculture, from guys like Superman to guys like Spider-Man. So the idea of the anti-hero, the super anti-hero, was very big in the 60s. So I tried to get that across by subverting the Superman S with the peace sign and making it Super Peace Man. And there's how it looks like on the wall as art. That's right next to my Super Money Man image, which again, as a commercial artist, not only did I use it for the show graphic, but over the years, this is how I first did it as a piece of advertising art. The Clark Kent ripping the shirt open has become a mainstream generic icon that you don't even have to be a comic book fan to know what that image is about. It's become part of the public consciousness. So in advertising and editorial usage, I've been able to reuse this image multiple times. This was a book cover. And it's got to the point where, in a thing called stock illustration, where illustrators sell their images for multiple uses, I've basically come right out and told potential clients, just stick your logo here and you've got an instant. So I would say, of all the images I've done to make money, this has been my biggest money-making image, which is why, it's why it made for a perfect image to basically,
What was that shot?
sell the show.
Holding up to Grace.
Yeah. Now, how did I jump ahead like that? That wasn't. Something got screwed up.
I do like that.
Oh yeah. So here we are at the very tail end of the gallery image, and that image blurred in the background. That is my one-page autobiography.
I love that idea.
The last page in my book, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art. And basically, in one page, with a pun title, Man and Superman, I tried to get across how I came about to being such a comic fan and a historian. So that little picture on the left is me in summer camp where I discovered comics. And to the right is the postcard image I sent back to my mother at home. Other kids were writing, send candy, send money. I sent her a drawing of Superman. And that's my idea of Mount Rushmore. Forget about the presidents. I would like to have a Mount Rushmore of these great superheroes who have inspired not only me, but a whole generation and generations of people to act heroically, to pursue heroic ideals, to become artists, to become writers. You'd be surprised how many policemen and firemen became policemen and firemen because of the comics they read. I have the testimonials in my files to prove it. Then somebody on Facebook a couple of years ago, I saw this image. I don't know whether they were influenced by my image, but somebody put this image together of what a real Mount Rushmore of comic book characters would look like. Then when you go down the page on the left, that's a drawing of me from when I was in 8th grade doing an oral report. The assignment was do an oral report about something informational. So what did I do? I was always looking to get comics into school. So I did an oral report on the lawsuit between DC Comics and Captain Marvel, suing Captain Marvel for copyright infringement. Anyway, then you get to the very last panel. That was back when I had a goatee. And basically, comic book art inspired my life and career, though it's often treated like a step job by mainstream culture. The debt I owe one of the greatest American art forms of the 20th century can never fully be repaid, which is the truth. And then, the very end, a friend of mine gave me this quote by Albert Camus, the existentialist writer. And they said, Arlen, this quote is you. And I read it, and I've been using it ever since. A man's work is nothing but the slow trek to rediscover, through the detours of art, those 2 or 3 great and simple images in whose presence his heart first opened. So thank you very much. Come tomorrow if you can to New York City, see the lecture, Life, Art, and Comic Book Art, which will be an expanded version of what I just did. And hopefully it'll be live streamed. And if you go to the MMC site, once we get the link tomorrow, we'll post it everywhere. And basically, that is my presentation. Now, I think to get out of here, do I then click back? Are we back? Did I do that right?
Yes. Well, that was wonderful.
and what I say, that was about a half hour, right? Perfect.
Presentation, Arlen. Very.
Thank you.
Very good work.
Thank you, Giovanna.
It's excellent. Arlen, I have a question, practical question. Like, if somebody wanted to hire you to do a one-page autobiography in comics, I think that'd be
I'm available. ArlenSchumer.com. Go to my site, my contact information. I would love to do stuff like that.
It's for hire. So what would be a price range? Is it depending on, if the person has a lengthy resume versus, or,
Are you talking about yourself right now?
Yes.
Oh, you put me in such a compromising position.
It was really cool.
Listen. The way things are these days, it's never about money. I mean, the economy, nobody has money. I've done more freebies to help people, and I'm still helping people with logos and images. The guy from the Fathers of the Dark Knight, he didn't have the money to pay me. I did it to help him out. So nowadays, it's always about the opportunity. So I never, even when I made money, in the years I made money, it was never about the money. I'm an idealistic artist. So the point is I'm always working to I'm always willing to work within everybody's budget and whatever the circumstances are. And the point is, nowadays, I'm at the point now where I want to do things to open up doors and opportunities. So it's really not about money. It's about the opportunity. So I'm open to anything. I love collaborating with people. I'm open to anything creative and collaborative, and, the sky's the limit.
Well, we want to remind people that your art is for sale at the gallery. And
absolutely.
you can prints. So you have prints of all of the we saw tonight?
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, so when they come to the gallery, everything's there. Obviously, when the gallery show's over, we'll be posting where people can buy prints. So they'll be available really anytime. And but yeah, the frame pieces in the gallery are for sale, and that's what we're hoping, make a little money for the gallery. And a rising tide lifts all boats.
So this is, again, is art on A Gallery. It was Avenue A and
right between 2nd and 3rd Street. Yeah, down in the East Village. Street,
yes, Lower East Side. It is a fantastic show, and you get Arlen in person Thursday nights.
Absolutely. And then, I'm trying to go there like every other day up until June 5th, so just that I can be there to meet people who come into the gallery. I figure, listen, they say this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I never thought I would have a show in the first place, being a commercial artist. So I don't know if, listen, this might be my only show, so I'm going to try to be at the gallery as much as I can be living in Connecticut. But, I'm going to hang out there. I'm trying to go like every other day. So if you can't come Thursdays and you can come another day, maybe I'll be there, because I'd love to meet people as they come in and talk about the art and stuff. And
you meet people on the sidewalk, too. I guess you being a former neighborhood kid, right, used to pulling them into the gallery, I noticed. That bit of meeting people.
Oh, I'm old school. Just give me that hook. I'll literally fish people in and hook them in.
I've seen it myself.
That's right. You can testify.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there are any questions from our audience. I see a few viewers. You could either type your questions, or I'll keep checking for those as we wrap up here. Giovanna, did you want to add anything? Because I can't see you, I'm just going to ask you.
No, I think you covered basically everything. I just want to thank Arlen for your time. I'm very inspired by your work, and I also think that hearing your source of inspiration puts a lot of context to what we see. One quick question, how long would it take? I mean, I know each piece is different, but on average, how long does it take?
I would say in general, when I just say something's a working day, I mean, I work day and night, and I take breaks. So when I say something is a working day, I stretch it out over a day and night. So pretty much all of my pieces are a 4-stage process. There's one working day for the basic rough sketch, the idea. Another working day for the tighter pencil drawing. Another working day to ink it in black line. And again, this is all rough estimates depending on the complexity of the image or the simplicity. And then another working day, if not more, for the coloring. So I wish I had a quickie style that I could whip stuff off. But when you work in the style I was trained in, what I call a realistic comic art style, it's pretty labor intensive, which is why comics are hard work. I mean, I never went into comics because I have more of a poster mentality. Like, my attention span after one image, I want to move on to the next. God bless these guys that can do 24 pages a month. I mean, for me, 24 pages would be like a year's worth of work. So I never actually, people look at my stuff and go, Arlen, have you ever drawn for Marvel or DC Comics? And I'm like, no, I never have. Because part of me, I don't have the wherewithal to do 24 pages a month. I mean, you've got to be really good and really fast. I don't think I'm fast. I think I might be good, but I'm not fast. So, I'm looking at the images that I showed, and yeah, all of them are roughly 4 working days, if not longer, depending on the complexity, So what can I tell you? Comics, the stuff I do is hard work. It ain't easy, and I don't consider myself a natural draftsman. I mean, I've seen guys, draw that are beautiful. I kind of struggle with my drawing, and nothing's easy. But
Well, you're very humble because you can't. I mean, they're all so prolifically done, and you know. But I get what you're saying. Proportions. As an artist myself, I'm not a drawer. I'm more of a painter, more of a color. Even though I do use.
Right.
Question for you: you do the comic biography. If you could do one for a celebrity, what celebrity would that be, and what would you put in the content?
Well, I didn't show an entire wall of Bruce Springsteen images because I wanted to keep this to a half hour. But there's a whole wall of Bruce Springsteen images because I'm a major Bruce Springsteen fan. I was art director of his first fan magazine when I was still in college. So he is the superhero of rock and roll, which I'll go into more in the lecture tomorrow in the gallery. But I would love to do a kind of a graphic novel version of his life because his life is the great American novel. He's written it on records and put it out. And his actual story is the great rock and roll story about the kid from, you know, white trash, uneducated, uncultured background becomes the greatest living rock and roller ever as a performer and a, writer and vocalist and band leader. So I could easily turn him into a historical graphic kind of thing. But, you know, because I'm a commercial artist and an illustrator, I'm very site-specific and I'm very project-oriented, meaning whatever the subject is. When I had to do Captain Israel, you know, I studied my Jewish history and learned about Theodore Herzl and guys I never knew about to do that. You know, whatever the subject matter is, I learn it, and then I try to bring it out in comics form and let the form follow the function. So I'd like to think that even though my style is fairly realistic, if you look at all the art that I showed, there's variety within the comic umbrella or underneath the comic umbrella. You know?
Okay, quick question though. How about a woman, a celebrity? Who would you do it for?
Oh man, I've turned a couple. I turned Ann Coulter into Wonder Woman. You know, these, like I said, I've done hundreds of images over the years. But you mean if I had a choice of what woman would I want to?
The first one that pops into your head.
Well, I'm a big Ayn Randian, so her life and her story is perfect for comics because her heroes are basically prose versions of superheroes, except they're not super powered, but they read. When I read Ayn Rand, it's basically superheroes. The guy who created Spider-Man was an Ayn Randian. So her story would make a great comic because of her life story and what she ended up, you know, writing about.
Ayn Rand, interesting. That's a controversial person.
Oh yeah, she's very controversial because she's been co-opted by the right wing, and yet she would be the first one, if she were still alive, to disown the right wing. She hated Ronald Reagan. She hated Nixon. So it's very ironic that she's been branded this doyen of the right-wing world, but man, she was the furthest thing from the right wing as it is today in America.
So she's misunderstood, like a lot of heroes.
You know what? If you're loved and hated, you must be doing something right. And believe me, Ayn Rand is as loved as she is hated, which means she's onto something. If she evokes, I'll never forget the very first guy I worked for when I got out of art school, Channel 13, WNET, the creative director, a man named Bill Mandel. I'll never forget, I happened to mention that I had just started reading Ayn Rand. When I tell you he turned red with rage, I mean he turned red. That is how visceral his hatred for Ayn Rand was. And I had never seen that before, mentioning an author. Are you kidding me? So that told me, like, whoa, if you evoke those kind of reactions, again, there's a great Facebook meme that says, if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. So the fact that she is as criticized as she is loved means she's doing something that's getting people's attention, and that means you have to decide where you stand with Ayn Rand. And, you know, that's what makes it controversial and yet exciting.
Well, that's a different take. I'd like to get more familiar with her work, but she is very controversial.
Oh, totally. And listen, you might read her, Giovanna, and you might be on the side that can't stand her or think she's in whatever, you know. But again, that'll be your decision to make, and nobody can predict ahead of time which side of the Ayn Rand coin you'll fall on. But people usually, they're on one side of that. There's no middle ground when it comes to Ayn Rand, which is exactly how she would want it.
Well,
totally black and white.
Well, you know, I think some certain authors have that ability and that intention probably when they set out to script something. Nothing related to comic books, but
right.
Recently the passing away of Gabrielle Garcia Marquez.
Yes.
He's loved in the Latino community. I cannot stand one of his books at all, and everyone. So I'm in the minority.
Interesting.
So I get it. You know, I mean, we all have our opinions and our sensitivities to why things hit, but that's interesting.
Well, you know what's interesting? Just one last thing about Ayn Rand is the Book Club of America, whatever the big book club is, they had a poll of their readers' favorite books. This was about 15 years ago, and it was reported in the New York Times. Well, books 1 and 3 through 10 were what I call the usual suspects. Madame Bovary, Moby Dick, you know, War and whatever are considered the great novels of the world. You know what fit? And the Bible was number 1. Guess what placed number 2? And the New York Times discussed every book in a paragraph except the number 2 book to the Bible, which was Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
To say, yeah.
So what does that tell you? That the paper of record chose to ignore the number 2 book to the Bible. I mean, so what does that tell you?
Mm-hmm. Well, now I'm compelled to read it. I've only read excerpts. So.
Yeah, read it and decide for yourself.
Right. So, Arlen, what are you doing to prepare for tomorrow night?
Well, the lecture that what I just showed was a sort of an abbreviated version. I've got to finish the kind of full-length version. So I'll be up to the wee hours, as I always am the night before these things. And then I head into the city tomorrow in the afternoon to set up. And it's going to be very cool. It's going to be like a little intimate, but, you know, we're hanging a white sheet from the ceiling to the floor of the gallery and the width of the gallery. So it's going to be a very cool projection within a very small space. So big image. And I love lecturing. I love talking about art and comics. So as you can see, I don't need any notes. It's all off the top of my head. But I try to make it come alive, and I can't help but let my passion and enthusiasm. And this is the first time I'm really talking about my own art. Most of my lectures are about comics history.
Yeah.
So this is really the first time I'm really talking about my own stuff, but I'm just as passionate and enthusiastic about my own stuff. So it's all of a piece. So anybody that comes tomorrow, I can guarantee you've never seen anybody lecture about comics or, dare I say, art until you've seen me. I take as much time with the images projected as I do with the verbal aspect. So, and again, I'm hoping that the gallery has the live stream together so that if you can't come tomorrow, you'll be able to tune in on the internet and see it. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that'll happen too.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't, how can people reach you? On Facebook, I know.
Facebook, just, you know, Facebook, whatever it is, Arlen Schumer. Make sure you spell my name, A-R-L-E-N, and S-C-H-U-M-E-R. And then arlenschumer.com is pretty much my whole career is on my website, as well as all the latest on the homepage are all the news items about the lectures and the Google Hangouts and, you know, everything. So,
Arlen, you have a book coming out.
If all goes well, sometime this summer, I'm waiting for DC and Marvel to give me the legal clearance. The publisher is ready to print, and we're just waiting, needless to say, on the lawyers who don't exactly operate at the speed you want them to. They operate at their own lawyer speed. So, unfortunately, that's been holding up the works, but the minute they give us the green light, which they've indicated they're going to, we're just going through the last couple of little clauses and things. But if all goes well, the book will be available. The digital book will be available instantly versus waiting for the hardcover book to be shipped from the Far East, where all coffee table books get printed. But if all goes well in the summer, I'll be at the San Diego Comic Convention in July. I'm hoping to have books there. I think I'm lecturing at a comic convention in Texas and later in June. There's the Javits Center Comic Convention Father's Day weekend. I'll have a table at, so even if I don't have the hardcover book, maybe I'll have the digital book available or prints for sale from the show. So that's where I'll be, and all that information will be posted on my site and Facebook page. So that's where people can get a hold of me best.
Fantastic. And also you can get a hold of us, Nicole Franklin, Giovanna Aguilar, at midnightmediacapture.com. We'll have Arlen's series, The Silver Age of Comic Books, in the fall. We're here on Wednesday nights now, though. Tonight was our first. Join us next week at 8 p.m., please. And Arlen, this has been wonderful. I want you to have a great time tomorrow night in person. The gallery is spectacular with your work on the walls.
Right. And people can go to artonagallery.com to get information specifically about the gallery and where they are and all that stuff.
Definitely. And sign up for our Google Plus community, Midnight Storytellers and Night Owls as well, for more on our Google Hangout. So thanks, everyone. We will see you next week online, but you will see Arlen, if you're in New York, in person tomorrow.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, everybody.